Welcome to On A Biz, a 30-minute TV program that will bring you to international events and a casual business talk. Today, this week, Biz Overview, we bring you to the seminar of the International Telecommunication Society or ITS at the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce. And today, I'm now with my new co-host, Mr. Sinfa Tansalavut, who you will see more often from now, and he will host this program occasionally.
Hello.
So see us at the seminar.
Biz Overview.
This is the fourth PhD seminar of the International Telecommunication Society, or ITS, in which 5 PhD candidates at various universities in Asia and Europe present their doctorate degree thesis. Their subjects are all involved with online communication, telecommunications, and its social impact. Among the 5 thesis presenters, 2 are Thai students, and On A Biz will talk to both of them. For today, we will first talk to the keynote speaker of this seminar, and then a Thai PhD student. The keynote speaker is Professor Gerard Pogarel, a professor emeritus of economics and management at Telecom Paris Tech in France, which is a prominent European research and higher education institution. He is an expert in radio spectrum management. We talked to him last week at a different seminar and on different subjects. Professor Pogarel will tell us about the effect and impact from the transition of analog TV to digital TV. Analog TV uses much more spectrum than the digital TV. So after the transition to digital TV, it frees a great deal of spectrums and it allows a lot more channels to happen.
This is because the spectrum used by an analog television can allow for 6 digital television, and since internet television needs much lower investment than terrestrial digital television, you can see the possibility of the enormous number of channels created by the digitalization.
However, Professor Pogarel also warns us that the increase in number of digital channels does not mean the increase of the resources of advertisement and state financial support as well. So all the content owners will be competing each other under this limitation.
And he suggests that the various stakeholders should sit down and jointly decide what the appropriate number of channels a particular country will need. Otherwise, most of the television channel will end up with low revenue and hence low quality television programs.
Please stay tuned for the Biz Chat.
Hello, Professor Gerard Pogarel. As an expert on spectrum management, could you tell us our programs? What will happen if Thailand or other countries migrate from analog television to digital television?
This is something very important, which is happening to television in general, the television industry and television channels. This change in technology from analog broadcasting to digital broadcasting allows the broadcasting of many more television channels. Just to give you an order of magnitude, the amount of radio spectrum which is used currently by one television channel can be used today or tomorrow by 6 television channels. So there is the possibility of multiplying the number of television channels by 6, so to say. So this is a very delicate situation for television, because we also have, so of course there's much enthusiasm about this among television people, because they are very creative, they want to create new programs, to have new shows, but also we have to keep in mind that the global amount of resources which is available to television channels is somewhat limited. Basically, you have three kinds of resources. If you take any typical country in the world, you have advertising, which is most often the main resource for television channels. You have government subsidies, sometimes based on taxes paid by viewers, and you have the various forms of television on demand, pay TV, etc. So, but this is a pie, but this is a pie which increases only slowly, because advertising, of course, can increase if you have a very interesting, very typical television channel, and it will attract advertisers. But on the other hand, you have, of course, the internet, which progressively grabs more and more advertising. So the resources available for television will be more or less stable or increase only slowly. Public funding, governments all over the world, they don't have so much money, so public funding is also limited, and pay-per-view advertising subscriptions can increase, but not hugely. So if technically it's possible to multiply the number of television channels by 6, the pie of resources, the amount of resources available for television will not be multiplied by 6. So we have to look at this very carefully. We have to make trade-offs, and there's a risk, and we see this already in some countries which have increased the number of television channels. The common observation is that each channel is getting poorer, because when you had 6 channels, for instance, now you have 24 channels, and the amount of resources, the money you can use to create programs, to create shows, this amount of money has been not multiplied but divided. So it's a very delicate decision.
So one analog television, if they move to digital television, they will possibly allow another 6 new.
Yes, another 5. So
another
6 as a total.
Another let's say 6 new digital television, and there will probably will be a huge amount of spectrum left.
Yes.
How
exactly?
Yeah. What's your recommendation for the state to make use of those unused spectrum?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't like to interfere with the government decisions. The people in government agencies know much better than I do, of course. But if we look at the experience of countries which already have proceeded with this switch off from analog to digital, what they did is they struck a compromise, a trade-off, and for them the trade-off, strangely enough, has been fairly similar in countries like Japan, the US, European countries. 25% of the spectrum which was previously used by analog television has been taken from television and allocated to broadband wireless, which allows the intensive use of smartphones, etc. So I would say what we keep in mind in making this decision is how many television channels are economically viable under the existing circumstances in one country. One country could accommodate maybe 12, another country 15, but not 6 times the existing number of channels. Otherwise, you know, of course, television people are artists. They think like artists. They want to create art. They want to create culture. They want to create information for the people. They are very enthusiastic people. But in behind, we still have, you know, to balance the budget of the channel, and we still have to have the money. So in the end, we have to be careful, you know, seen from the public policy perspective, to make sure the channels have the necessary resources, because having poor channels, poor quality television is not good for anyone. Plus, and if I may, there's also a question, a longer-term question for television, because what we see in countries which already have broadband internet, like you know, in the US or in some European countries or Japan or Korea, television is progressively moving to internet, and because on the internet you can have even on ADSL, you can have 50 television channels. It's like on satellite or on cable. So why, you know, take the pain to invest in this digital terrestrial technology if, I don't know, 3 or 5 years from now, people shift to the internet? So it's kind of a dynamic process. And policymakers, I'm sure, will take into account this dynamic process.
But won't it move from whatever either terrestrial analog television or terrestrial digital television to internet television? Would they suffer the same fate of limited resources in the television industry?
Well, that's a good point. But it's, I would say, the cost, when you put in place a broadcasting network for television on terrestrial, it costs money. Whereas on the internet, adding one channel or subtracting one channel is very cheap. It's very cheap. So I think what's happening in the United States at the moment is interesting. They have moved they have switched off analog 2 years ago. So now television terrestrial is purely digital. But what they see at this moment is that progressively people view television on the internet. So the Federal Communications Commission, the U.S. regulator, is putting in place some mechanism to allow televisions to free frequency bands they do not use anymore, and to get money from the proceeds of those frequency bands, knowing, and this is the other important point, that the broadband wireless is exploding, and the usage of smartphones, tablets, and etc. makes so that broadband wireless is exploding, and the amount of frequencies which can be used by broadband wireless is always increasing. So if we could find a realistic and path for television to move progressively away from the radio spectrum and to internet, and get the necessary funding to allow this transition, I think that would be very good. But if I may add just one thing, the one big problem, I would say, for television is that in many countries, and I think it's the case in Thailand, television broadcasters own their broadcasting networks. So they have, that's correct. So they have direct control on their broadcasting network, and they are free to broadcast what they want, which is perfect, necessary. When television is broadcasted on the internet, they talk to internet service providers, telecommunications companies, and they don't have the same level of control on what is broadcasted. And sometimes, you know, one network operator can say, oh, this channel doesn't bring money to me, so we drop it. And this is not good. So if I would insist very much on this, if there's a shift progressively and over time from the way television is broadcasted now on terrestrial and under the direct control of television channels to the internet, there should be legal provisions which make sure televisions retain, you know, the freedom and independence that they should absolutely enjoy in a democracy.
What is experience now in Europe in terms of this? When they move to the internet television, will they still enjoy the same kind of independence they used to enjoy when they still terrestrial?
So we've had the first stage where so television free 25%, about 25% of its spectrum, and now in Europe and the US, regulators are considering free another 25% of frequency bands, and making sure with must-carry rules, for instance, and the necessary freedom. But I think we should go further, and we should go further, and the kind of regulation which is meant to preserve the independence of television should be reinforced now that they will shift to networks on which they don't have direct control. This is very important for our society.
So I think it's safe to say that as the trend is, the television will move from analog to digital, and even internet television, it will allow the radio spectrum left by those migration to be used on other purposes, which could benefit the state and the people in general.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Professor.
much.
Thank you very much. Very pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
Welcome to On A Biz. As you might know, as a Thai, recently we have an auction of a spectrum of 2.1 gigahertz, which the state had earned something like over 40 billion baht. But actually we have another, a frequency band that we know as spectrum common, which will allow people to use it for free or without any payment. Could you tell us a little bit more what is this spectrum common?
So first of all, we will say that spectrum common is another opposite side when we compare to the spectrum that we auction. So spectrum common is provide everyone to share the same frequency, but they didn't have the ownership of the frequency. So we call it is non-exclusively used for the spectrum. So everyone come to use the frequency without owner of the frequency. And this frequency can be right now already widely used globally, such as the Wi-Fi frequency 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz that many technology can use this frequency and deliver the service, such as the internet, wireless internet, or the Bluetooth, or the wireless connection between the laptop and the camera, Also, the printer is like have like small office without wire. So that frequency is really useful for connectivity without wire. So that the benefit of the wireless connection.
What is the Thai government is doing with this frequency band of
For the spectrum common.
common.
So right now the NBTC they have adopt the previous NTC announcement that allow the people, general public, can be use the frequency without license or radio communication license. And one of the frequency that exempt the radio communication license is the 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz. So everyone would like to connect their home internet with they have subscribed with the DSL or cable modem or even though to the fiber to home. So they like to distribute all of the internet around their house. So they just buy the wireless router that have the Wi-Fi frequency equipped with. So right now they have 2.4 to 2.5 and also at the 5 gigahertz band, also the spectrum common frequency that the general public just buy the equipment and plug it with their internet connection and they distribute the wireless internet throughout their home without paying the money. We call this money is the frequency usage fee through the government, and in this time is the NBTC office that act on behalf of the government. So using the frequency without pay the frequency usage fee by using the NBTC unlicensed regulation.
Should NBTC or the government allow more frequency or wider frequency to be used on this purpose?
Yeah, of course. We encourage all regulation around the world would like to allocate more and more for the frequency for the spectrum common, increase a number of frequency band ranging from the low frequency to the high frequency. So because we know that spectrum common have the advantage of the increasing the spectrum utilization. So when you use it, if we use the old scheme like the command and control that we go to ask the permission from the government, and this frequency is belong to you only. I cannot share with you, but for the spectrum common, when you not use it, so I enable to use when you not use it. So the spectrum common in this sense can increase a lot of utilization of the frequency and make the frequency is more efficient.
But how can that, what you just said, can be regulated? So for example, one person has used that frequency and later on
When
he doesn't use it. How can somebody else use that frequency that person is not using?
Okay, so have to thank for the advancement of the technology that they develop really fast and they can manage this kind of the protocol, internal protocol between inside the equipment. Someone use it and they can know that this chunk of the frequency cannot be used right now, but the next or adjacent frequency is available. So this intelligent device or the technology can reserve this frequency for the temporary use, like when you like to use it and it release after you use. So this kind of technology we're talking a lot. So one of them is a cognitive radio system that they provide the ability that one can use in somewhere and can swap to another frequency when they have another user that occupy this band and can be swapped all around. However, this scope of frequency band have to be granted the right to use by the government or the regulator in Thailand. NBTC of course have to announce as the unlicensed or licensed frequency before we can use it, because our law entitled that all of the radio com equipment have to be licensed. Without license, you cannot use it. Another good thing for this scheme is not create the harmful interference. Like when you right now we have a lot of problem for the harmful interference in the broadcasting band, like because we have many local or community
radio, sorry.
So when you can notice when you drive from one area to another area, sometimes you can heard the sound is clearly, but sometimes you cannot hear anything at all. So it's because of they didn't have the good plan for channeling the band because it's close to each other, and also they have the intermodulation. Just 1 plus 1 plus 2 is equal to another frequency and it interfere each other. But for the new technology, digital technology, this interference can be disappear or is eliminated. So and once the technology is allowed and the regulation and regulator allowed to use it, so we can announce that this chunk or this band of frequency can be granted for everyone as the spectrum common.
Thank you, Kun Nathawood. I think this is a quite good news for the end user. As the technology improves, it can be expected that there will be more radio spectrum available, and that those radio spectrums could be available for free, and user can use it without any payment, without having to organize huge auction, without having to compete for pricing. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure.
Today, we have learned a great deal about digital TV from both Professor Pokorel and Kun Nathawood, and we also know that proper regulation is needed here. Otherwise, all the content owners will be competing each other under this limitation of resources, and more importantly, it will lead to a very poor quality of content and creativity.
And for the spectrum common, we hope that our regulator, the National Broadcasting and Telecommunication Commission, will allow for more spectrum for public use to allow greater access to the internet and online communication.
Well, so far, I hope that you really enjoy our program today. We will continue to bring more insightful information about technology and its social impact. For more information, our TV program airs every Saturday during 11 to 11:30 p.m. Thailand local time on MCOT World. We'll see you again same time next week in Eyes on A Biz.
Goodbye for now.
If you talk about the PC online in Thailand, the internet is the most important for the game online. But in Thailand, I think the internet service provider, I think they can approve already that internet is
First of all, I'm a game player as well. I play specific games that I